The Battle of the Sinai was one of the most consequential battles of the Yom Kippur War. An Egyptian attacking force that advanced beyond the line of defense at the Bar-Lev Line was repulsed with heavy losses by Israeli forces. This prompted the Israelis to launch Operation Abiray-Lev the next day, penetrating the Egyptian line of defense and crossing the Suez Canal. Background: after Egyptian infantry had successfully crossed the canal and captured the Bar-Lev Line on October 6, Israeli forces made several counterattacks in attempts to push the Egyptians back across the Suez Canal. The Israelis suffered heavy losses in these attacks, and by October 9 Egyptian forces in the Sinai had managed to destroy 500 Israeli tanks. Following this, both sides dug in. The Egyptians would not attack for fear of losing the cover of the SAM defenses. In the Golan Heights, Israel had repelled Syrian forces and had pushed into Syria itself. By the time Syrian forces had managed to put a halt to the Israeli advance, Israeli forces were 40 kilometers from Damascus. Syrian President Hafez al-Assad requested his Egyptian ally, Anwar el-Sadat, order an attack in the Sinai, which would draw Israeli attention away from the Syrian front. Sadat consented and ordered the attack. His war minister, Ahmed Ismail, and his chief of staff, Saad el-Shazali, opposed the idea. Shazali in particular stated that for Egyptian forces to advance outside their SAM defenses would mean their exposure to the Israeli Air Force, which the Egyptian Air Force was too weak to challenge. Sadat insisted that the attack proceed, however, and both Ahmed Ismail and Shazali had no choice but to acknowledge the order. Prelude: the attack was to proceed on October 13, but was postponed to October 14. 4 armored brigades and 1 mechanized infantry brigade under the command of the 2nd and 3rd Armies were to make 4 independent thrusts. Awaiting for them was a dug-in force of 800 Israeli tanks supported by infantry equipped with SS-11 missiles, as well as American-made Law and TOW anti-tank missiles. Israel had in the Sinai by October 14 around 15 brigades totaling nearly 60,000 infantry. The Israeli Air Force provided intense air cover during the battle and aftermath. The Egyptians launched their offensive in the early morning of October 14. At 6:30, the mechanized infantry brigade was to attack in the direction of the Gedi Pass. 1 armored brigade was to attack in the direction of the Mitla Pass. 1 brigade was to attack towards Balusa, and 2 brigades were to attack in the direction of Tasa. As anticipated by many Egyptian officers, the attack was a failure. Encountering stiff Israeli resistance, the Egyptian assault came to a halt after suffering heavy losses, and Egyptian troops retreated back to the lines on the Suez Canal. Egyptian losses in the battle were 200 to 250 tanks and up to 1,000 men killed and wounded in action. The 3rd Egyptian Armored Division was completely eliminated and 120 Egyptian prisoners were taken in the battle at war.An. The Egyptians also lost the 2nd Army commander, Saad Mammon, who suffered a heart attack at the beginning of the day. By contrast, Israeli losses were 50 to 150 tanks, 60 other armored vehicles and some aircraft. The following day, the Israelis launched Operation Abiray-Lev, crossing the Suez Canal and cutting off the Egyptian Third Army's supply lines.